The church insists that Zion's camp was not a failure. While it outwardly did not fulfill its stated objective of redeeming Zion, so the claim goes, it served deeper and more important purposes of the Lord. But this is false narrative. The truth is that the whole purpose of standing up the army of Zion was to reclaim the lands of Zion. The Lord guaranteed the campaign's success dependent upon the obedience of his warriors. The Lord himself, while ultimately accepting the offering, called it an abject failure. His people had transgressed. He made it clear that if they had not transgressed, Zion would have been redeemed. In his anger, the Lord condemned the saints for their disobedience. Not only are the claims of the church misleading, they seek to suppress criticism of the church and promote the carnal security of all is well in Zion. But all was not well in the Zion of the time, as the Lord made very clear. The statement transfers the blame for failure from Zion's camp to those who criticize the camp. All those who believe the venture was a failure do not have the spiritual understanding of the Lord's deeper purposes. One of those who called Zion's camp a failure was the Lord himself. In a very real sense, the church is condemning the Lord for not understanding his own deeper purposes. If he did understand these purposes, so the church apparently believes, he would not have criticized the church for its failure. It is without argument that the experience of Zion's camp did test the testimonies of all of those involved and did prepare some for future leadership positions in the church. But this is not suitable cover for the failure of the church. Zion was not redeemed, and there was no way around that fact. What the church is claiming is that in some way, the deeper purposes of the Lord outweigh the Lord's stated purpose of the camp. There seems to be a spiritual ledger where all the purposes are valued as debts and credits. A balance is arrived at through the sum of all credits and debts. In this case, the credits, meaning the deeper purpose of the Lord, are of greater value than one debt, the failure to redeem Zion. The balance, therefore, is positive, and Zion's camp is a success. But this implied spiritual ledger is another false narrative. It does not take into account that the deeper purposes of the Lord could have just as easily been accomplished through a successful campaign. The testing of testimonies and the preparing of leaders does not necessarily require failure. Nevertheless, the disobedience within the church was not universal. Most of the leadership proved faithful. Generally speaking, it was the membership of the church at large who were at fault. They withheld support, especially money from the Lord. For those who were faithful, the Lord promised a future blessing, specifically an endowment of power.